Do we prioritize populations as a strategic resettlement tool? So if we go in and we agree to resettle part of this population, then that will somehow encourage the local government to take the rest of the population and make them citizens, or encourage the country of origin government to then allow some of them to be repatriated. Is that how we prioritize the resettlement solution? Or do we prioritize it based on emergent special interest groups? Groups that have the largest and loudest political voice in the parliament and in Congress, churches, nonprofit organizations? Or do we do a mix of all of the above? One of the things I'm looking at is how do we prioritize these populations, or how do we prioritize protracted refugee populations for resettlement, because I believe that they pose one of the larger problems for the refugee community. Very quickly, I want to tell you a little bit about the U.S. resettlement program and how it's currently prioritized. You have Priority 1, which are individual referrals. These are people who have come to the U.S. government and are saying, protect me because of the individual circumstances that occurred to me. You have Priority 2, which are group referrals. These are like the Bhutanese Nepali in Southern Nepal, who say, U.S. government, please protect me. Canadian government, please protect me because my group of people has been persecuted, because as a group we are suffering. They're usually referred to our governments by the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. And the third priority is family-based petitions. These are people who are not necessarily refugees, but they're family members of refugees. And so when refugees then come to the United States, they then petition for their family, who may be in a position where it is not politically volatile, where they may not be discriminated against because of some protected status. We don't know. But the important point to remember is that all of these numbers come out, all of these people come out of that same 80,000 a year pot. So the more family members you let in, the less refugees who are true refugees you're allowed to resettle. On top of that, our Priority 3 categorization, implementation of it has been suspended, because in 2008 we initiated a DNA testing program to establish the familial connection. And what we encountered was an incredibly high rate of fraud. So, and I won't say just high, the overwhelming majority of the P3 populations had no genetic ties whatsoever to the refugee who was petitioning them, petitioning for them and saying that they were indeed their family members. So that program has been suspended. There's talk right now about mandating DNA testing and moving forward with that program. But again, if we do that, that counts against the total refugee numbers allowed for admission every year. A little bit about the Canadian resettlement program. Canada has basically two streams of refugee admission, a non-governmental organization sponsoring stream and a governmental sponsoring stream. There's no formal whole-of-government approach. What I mean by that is there isn't an approach where the humanitarian functionality or functions in the Canadian government, the political entities, the immigration entities, the resettlement entities all dovetail together and work together to target a specific population using all the different tools at their disposal. It does seem to be a process that are in various cylinders and then operate independent of each other. Canada actually has done an amazing job, and that's the reason I'm here, in promoting the issue of protracted refugee resettlement, however. They recently did an inventory, or I think it was about 2 years ago, did an inventory of all the governmental tools at the disposal of your leaders, of the leaders of Canada, and said, okay, how do we use all these tools and approach this situation from all different sides in order to come to a better solution? So Canada really has been on the forefront of identifying this problem and promoting the interests of the groups that are facing this problem. Here are some pictures, just again, typical kind of camp life. On the left, you have an outhouse, which itself is a luxury. Obviously, there's no plumbing or whatnot. It's simply a hole in the ground. But even having that level of privacy is very, very desirable and rare in the camps. And on the right, you see the residences dirt floors, kind of bricks, a brick foundation with mud put on top of it, bamboo woven to make the walls, usually bamboo as used in the ceiling construction. Sometimes there's tin, sometimes there's plastic. When I was talking to the refugees, a lot of them urged me to expedite the resettlement process. And I said, well, you know, I understand clearly why you'd want to expedite the process, but is there an additional reason beyond the difficult situation that you're in? And they said, well, yes, the rains are coming. And every time the rains come, they wash away all our houses and we have to rebuild them all. So there's an environmental reality, an environmental impact that is felt on refugees often as well that we forget about. And with the rains, obviously, come sickness, illness, and death. If the question is asked, do we need to reform the system? My response is the system needs to be reformed. The system needs to be reformed because we're not seeing these populations getting the type of durable solutions and improvements in quality of life that they should be getting. So if we are serious about reforming these systems, we're going to have to think about being creative in our approach and accepting the realities of the current situation, and having our international actors and having our government not live in a world as we want it to be or live in a world as it was, but in the world as it is. And that also means accepting the fact that monies that have traditionally been available for these government programs are not going to continue to be there. They are leaving, they are going away, they are drying up. So how do we reform these systems and get creative solutions to solve that problem when we have this new reality? One of the ways is to look at the durable solutions that are available to us, the three traditional ones that I mentioned, but also look at it from a economic perspective as well, and think, can we look at non-governmental organizations? Can we look at the free market and free market principles and apply them to this situation where it could be helpful to help leverage a new solution? I wanted to share with you two anecdotes from my times there of two different families who were resettled in the United States. The first family, it was a husband, one wife, several children, were resettled into New York City. So they go from the refugee camp in Nepal, which everyone is just like you, they look like you, they talk like you, they think like you, they worship like you, to the middle of New York City. And they give the mother and the father jobs as baggage handlers at JFK Airport. So you're going from a situation that lacks diversity to a situation that has a lot of diversity and is incredibly hostile. You know, millions of luggage come through there every year, and so it was a very, very difficult employment for this couple to have. Now, the husband and wife came back to the Refugee Resettlement Agency and asked to be taken back to the refugee camp. Now, in no way should we look at this as a lack of fortitude on their part or a lack of desire to pull themselves up by their bootstraps and to, you know, be entrepreneurial in their perspective. The reality is that they had no skill set and no preparation to be able to handle the new job and tasks ahead of them. And so they would rather choose a life where they could possibly face starvation and violence than a life as a baggage handler at JFK Airport. So we're doing something wrong in that instance. And if we're doing something wrong, or if we did something wrong in that instance, we're probably doing things wrong in other instances of integration. Compare that to the story of another refugee family who was resettled from southern Nepal to northern California. Now, the Refugee Resettlement Agency looked at this family's available skill set. They said, aha, you know how to engage in farming. You know how to engage in organic farming. What we'll do is we'll get you a job working in an organic farm in Northern California. Well, the family obviously did very well because that's a desirable skill that many people don't have. They excelled at their employment, and they eventually ended up becoming farm owners themselves, productive members of society, and hiring people, creating jobs. That is a solution that worked. But that was a solution that required us to be a little bit more detailed in our understanding of that individual person's